Welcome back into another episode of the Believe in Georgia Tech podcast. We are your co-hosts. That is RJ Schafer. I'm Jackson Caudell, coming to you late night potting tonight. We're coming to you Thursday night. At the time of this recording, it is 8:45 on Thursday, and I gotta ask RJ, how you doing, man?
Doing the best I can do. College is picking up. College football season. We're getting into the middle of it. A lot of stuff going down, but again, it feels good to talk Georgia Tech football, especially when Georgia Tech football is good, and you best believe they're very good.
Yep, absolutely. And we're gonna dig into all that. We're gonna let RJ get his thoughts about the Clemson win. Obviously, RJ was at work Saturday night. Was it? I guess not night, but like whenever I recorded in from my car on Saturday. Let RJ get his thoughts out. Kind of talk some big picture stuff. Obviously, preview the game against Temple, who's actually a very intriguing team. Like I watched all three of their games, in prep for this, and just digging deep on them. And they're a really intriguing team to me. But obviously, before we do any of that, guys, we'd love it. I think at the time of this recording, we are 8 subscribers away from 1,000. It's crazy to me that we have that many and that many people support us, but we love it all the same. Would love it if we could get to 1,000 here soon. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We got a lot of things coming down the track here. Look, I mean, Georgia Tech's 3-0. They're going to be favored in a whole lot of games coming up. Obviously, we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves, but this could be a really special season, and we want everybody to be locked in here. We want to give you guys the best Georgia Tech content as possible. So definitely be sure to lock in, subscribe, and keep this thing rolling. All right, so I gave my thoughts about Clemson. I'll still give a little bit because I've rewatched the game a couple times by now, but I guess what were your thoughts on the win? How the win played out? Just all your thoughts from Saturday.
Yeah, I think when I go into talking about this game, it feels like the score was not 24-21. To me, it felt kind of similar to Colorado, where for the most part of that game, before Georgia Tech had the, back-to-back three and outs, and before the beginning of that second half, they started to struggle a little bit. It felt like Georgia Tech dominated in this game, like for most on most accounts. Um, but I think the one part where they did fall short, and you see this as a constant theme throughout the game, all the way from the first drive of the game to the end of the game. They did struggle to finish drives, and that is something that does worry me. Because we honestly we don't know how good Clemson is. Clemson's not ranked anymore. They're not this preseason darling team that everybody thought they were going to be. College football playoff shoe-in, and that's just not what they are. And the fact that you did struggle with them at points, again, very talented team, does get me pretty worried. But besides that, um, the run game was fantastic. Haynes King put his body on the line a million times in this game. And again, that's to be expected. It's just a couple of the play calls on offense, a couple of the way that the drives ended were a little bit suspect, like that JT Byrne play. Fumble, got his own fumble. There were a lot of scary moments in that game where I thought to myself, I'm like, Clemson's going to get themselves back into this thing. And I think they did look a lot better in this game than they have in the past couple of weeks, but this is still not the Clemson that we thought they were.
No, but okay, I'll say this. I think I still think obviously Georgia Tech deserves a heap of credit for the win because as far as talent goes, you're not going to face a more talented team like Georgia. I have a lot of questions about the Clemson offense that I'm not smart enough to answer. I don't know what is going on there because I think a lot of credit should go to Georgia Tech's defense. I think this is a good defense. I don't think it's an elite one by any means. It still amazes me that Georgia Tech won this game without one tackle for loss or sack. You just don't see that much. And I'm not at all saying that Georgia Tech didn't deserve to win. I'm just pointing out how often do you see that? And that's one of my key concerns going forward is I still think I want to see this defense play a more competent passing attack because that's something we talked about leading into the game was, all right, Clemson has the talent on that side of the ball. But is it going to come together? Because Cade Klubnik has not been very good this season. Their receivers, I know they were missing Antonio Williams, who was really good. But I mean, man, aside from Brian Wesco and that 73-yard touchdown, it looked so hard for them. And I think a good amount of credit should go to Georgia Tech's defense. I think Blake Gideon has done a good job. I think they did a good job of sending some pressure towards Klubnik. I do think that they got to him a couple times. I know they didn't get the sack, but I do think that they confused him a couple times. And man, I want to give just a huge shout out to Omar Daniels for the game that he played. I don't think I gave him enough credit last Saturday. Look, the interception, he recovered the fumble at the beginning of the game. I think he just played his tail off, and then just to have that experience back there. I still think the thing is, I don't know when Georgia Tech's secondary is going to get tested again, because that is still the pass rush and a strong passing game. I still think could be the kryptonite for this defense. But you look down the schedule and it's like, we'll talk about Temple in a little bit. No offense to Temple. I don't think that they possess the kind of talent that I'm talking about on that side of the ball. Wake Forest cannot throw the ball. Virginia Tech cannot throw the ball. Duke and Syracuse can. So I think that that's going to be the next chance for us to see that. But I come away from that game thinking, all right, they passed this test. I still want to see a little bit more. I think to your point, the running game with Haynes King was good. I didn't see as much from Jamal or Malachi Hosa, which they didn't get a ton of opportunities. It was basically Haynes King or bust in the run game. Love the way Isaiah Canyon played. I think there were some ups and downs with the offensive line. That's a very good Clemson defensive front. You saw some guys rotating in and out. I know Malachi Carney, I think he struggled early on. You had Jamison Riggs come in. I think he ended up playing 25 snaps. I saw, at least according to PFF. I think one of the bigger things, Tana did get hurt in that game. He's questionable for Saturday. But overall, I still feel the same. I think it's just a great win. The way you executed it was mostly fine. I agree with you. The viewers, they can tell you in the comments, I hated the fourth down play calling, especially the JT Burton one. I'll defend the screen pass on the level that they had the numbers out there and they just didn't execute it. They had the numbers to block Clemson and Clemson just beat them. So I'll defend that on that level, but the other one, I can't. But yeah, just overall a really good win. We'll see what Clemson is the rest of the way. I still think that they're going to end up with they could win out. I don't know that they will. I think they've definitely got some things, but I don't think that should take away what Georgia Tech was able to do on Saturday, getting their first win over the Tigers in a decade. So I guess moving forward, now we have to, it's 3-0, first time under Brent Key. They started 2-0 last year, then lost to Syracuse. Now they're 3-0. Now you have to avoid the hangover. Now you have to come out and avoid playing poorly and letting the win affect you and keep you not focused. And I think that was something I know Brent Key was asked a million times this week about, hey, how's the focus of your team? How's the preparation? How's this? How's this? And he said today when we asked him hey, it's the best Thursday practice we've had in a long, long time. Could it be coach speak? Sure. But I do think that one common thing I'm sensing for them is they're trying to learn from their past. Hey, we've started hot before. Hey, whenever we've won these big games before, something bad's always happened. Now it's, preventing that bad thing and just staying as crisp as possible. And you're doing that by welcoming in Temple for only the second ever meeting. I'm definitely not going to bring up the first one. I think we all remember that one. And like I said in the intro, Temple is a very interesting team. I'll have to walk back some comments I made about them, at least for now. I thought, just on paper, they were going to be one of the worst teams in the FBS this year. And I still don't know. I think they're a fringe bowl team, probably. They look a lot better than I gave them credit for. I do want to point that out. Look, we'll get to my picks. I think Georgia Tech's going to win this game. I think they're going to win handily. Spoiler alert. But I do think that Temple has some interesting things for them. I think they're incredibly well coached. Casey Keeler has won 273 games as a head coach. He's won multiple national championships, and they look well coached, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They bring do a lot of motions, do a lot of shifts. They bring an interesting running game. What stands out to you about this matchup, and what does Georgia Tech need to do to avoid the hangover from the win against Clemson?
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of things with Temple throughout their first games. If you ignore the Oklahoma game, again, I know that's a big feat. They kind of, I guess you can say they haven't played anybody besides Oklahoma. You know, they played one of the worst FBF teams and dog walked them. But
That's
I
what
think,
makes them kind of hard to figure out. So, like,
yeah,
and again, this I'm not trying to slight them or take anything away from them. Like, they did just destroy UMass. Do you know where UMass ranks in SP plus of all FBS teams?
probably last.
Dead last. They're
Yeah,
136th. Howard is not very good. But it's at the same time, I don't think like they barely scratched 100 yards against Oklahoma. And like they were obviously thoroughly dominated in that game. Now, I think they're a little bit better than what they showed on Saturday, but it's trying to find out like how much because like again, not trying to take anything away from what they did in the first 2 weeks, but like those two teams they played were really really bad. So just some basic stats about Temple as far as offense. They're 57th in the country in points per game, 54th in rushing yards per game, 90th in passing yards per game, and 78th in total yards per game. I guess kind of what stands out to you about their offense when you look at it and just kind of like what they've been able to do so far this year.
yeah. To me, the big thing that pops off the stat sheet is Evan Simon. You know, he's been the guy there for a couple of years. Obviously, transferred in from Rutgers. 9 touchdowns to 0 interceptions through 3 weeks. Didn't throw a pick against Oklahoma. No matter who you play, not turning the ball over, keeping it clean, and already looking a lot better on the stat sheet than he did last year. I mean, again, I know he struggled against Oklahoma, didn't throw a touchdown pass, but still, 9 touchdowns, no interceptions, pretty solid completion rate, especially being at the school that you're at. Again, no offense to Temple. He definitely had a lot of times where you know you're playing a team like Oklahoma. They're going to challenge you a lot. They're going to pressure you, and he still didn't throw an interception. So that makes me have a little bit more faith in their offense than I did before. They got a couple of guys who can really do it. Another guy I want to highlight before we get into just the full overall overview of Temple is a guy what feels like a million time transfer in Jay Ducker. I think he's been on 5 or 4 college football teams at this point. He's honestly been really solid for them, even though their run attack against Oklahoma was whatever it was. It wasn't very strong. He felt like the best player on offense in that game for them. 7 carries, 24 yards. Again, I know it doesn't jump off the stat sheet, but if you look at that box score, that was an ugly game. They averaged a yard per rush, and he was averaging 3.4 yards per rush. He's definitely a talented guy. It's just a matter of can you put it all together against higher competition because you couldn't do that against Oklahoma. And Georgia Tech is on a similar level. I don't know if they're on the same level defensively as Oklahoma, but still a good level of team. And, I don't know if Temple can get up for that.
Yeah, so I definitely don't think Georgia Tech is as good as Oklahoma defensively. And that's not a slight at Georgia Tech. I just think Oklahoma has like one of the probably 5-10 best defenses in the country. And so this is where again I harp on the pass rush a lot, and I know somebody brought up in the comments last game is like okay, like where are we at with some of these transfer edge guys and some of that, and like I still think it's just TBD. Like we still Braden Manley has game to game it hasn't really been there. Amontre Bradford, he got 2 sacks against Gardner Webb, wasn't really a factor last week, so like he's got to show up. Akilo Stone's been pretty solid. Christian Garrett's been pretty solid, but it's Ronald Triplett's been kind of hampered by something. I believe he's available or Saturday, or at the very least he's just questionable. Like I don't think he's been ruled out. But some of these younger guys, like I think you just have to see it on a consistent basis because you look at the 2 games against Power 4 opponents, you have 1 sack. Like you have when Jordan Vandenberg sacked Caden Salter in that first game against Colorado, like that was the only sack you had.
Mhm.
So again, like I hate to like just bring it up continuously, but it's like it just has to get better. Like, I think they did a pretty solid job of pressuring Klubnik. Like they brought some different looks at him, and I think they made him uncomfortable at times, which I do think was key. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, hey, it's just been like 2023. But at the same time, like you have to finish plays, and the production just has to be there. Now Temple's offensive line is not very good. I don't think. Like I think that's the weak point of the offense, and like I think you see that a lot. Like there's okay, so like when you look at their stats, like he only threw the Simon only threw the ball 10 times against Howard. They don't throw the ball downfield a ton. Like it's a lot of quick game, and it's a lot of that. And I think that's by design. I don't think their offensive line is very good. So I want to see the defensive line step up and dominate. Does that mean the problems are cured? Does that mean like okay, hey, they dominated Temple, so it's we're good now? No, but it's something reassuring you want to see after not being able to finish some plays on Saturday against Clemson.
Yeah, and I think it's huge. Again, we've talked about Temple in a lot of different ways. For what they are, there's a reason why they're an underdog by over 20. There's a reason why you should win this game, and one of those reasons is you should be able to go out there and neutralize their offense pretty heavily just because you do have the guys and you do have the skill. It's just a matter of, and we talked about this after the Colorado game, and I didn't want to be talking about this, heading into our fourth game of the season, but they've struggled to, um, finish pass rushes, getting into the pocket and actually getting the quarterback down. We have seen a lot of pressure at times, and I think Klubnik was under a lot of pressure in that game, but you couldn't finish in the backfield, and you saw that in the run game as well. Again, this is another opportunity. We talked about this at Gardner Webb. We're talking about it again. You have to get in the backfield. You have to finish these plays. And I know some of these graph numbers for Temple are a little bit off because they're top 20 in EPA per pass, and that makes it look a lot scarier than it is.
Well, that is one thing I want to point out. So for our YouTube viewers, we are looking like we always do. Our friends over at Game on Paper, the kind of the game preview, and the numbers for Temple are skewed a little bit just because of how dominant they were in those first two games against UMass and Howard. Like at the end of the season, I don't think they're going to look like this.
And I think if you just include the Oklahoma game, it would pretty much be the opposite of this that we're looking at. But for whatever you think about the Temple offense, we both don't think that they're a very strong offense. They're a solid group of five offense, and that's it. Full stop. You have to go out there. You had to pressure their guys. You have to try to get an interception out of Evan Simon. Oklahoma couldn't do it. Again, had him under pressure a lot, but you got to be able to force turnovers, and that's one thing Georgia Tech has struggled with for a couple of years is forcing turnovers. And
did a fairly good job last week.
Yeah,
Like I mean, the Omar Daniels pick in the red zone was obviously huge. The play at the beginning of the game was obviously huge. I mean, you got a field goal out of it. You won the game by a field goal. But like I agree with your overall point. Like I want to see them dominate on the line of scrimmage because I think they can in this game. Like I think they have the guys to be able to do that. And then just again defend the pass. Like that's something we've talked about. Okay, how can these guys do? And we talked about it last week. The PFF grades have not been super kind to Georgia Tech DBs. We got Rodney Shelley back last week. I thought he was fine for the most part. Like he played 24 snaps, graded out as a 71.5 on PFF, which was actually top 5. Like it was really good. But yeah, I think overall, like I want to see the defense dominate on the line of scrimmage, create havoc, make Evan Simon uncomfortable, and just not allow any big plays in the passing game.
yeah. I think I think we say this against any team where Georgia Tech is a big favorite. As long as you hunker down and you play your game and you do what you're supposed to do, I don't think you should have any issues. I don't think you have to do anything, you know, off the sheet of paper. I think we know what type of game this is. I think there is a pretty decent talent gap in this game, and if you let that talent gap be the talent gap, you're going to find yourself with the lead.
Yep. So let's transition over to the other side of the ball. So when Georgia Tech has the ball, I guess I'll start with this. To me, this needs to be a Jamal Haynes, Malachi Hosley game. Like I want to see those guys get some carries in this game because they haven't just gotten just a ton yet. I mean so like Jamal's carried the ball 37 times, fair amount. Like Malachi's carried it 19 times. I talked about this at the beginning of the season, like your early part of the schedule against Gardner Webb, against Temple, against Wake Forest, and probably Virginia Tech. Like they just look like a dumpster fire right now. These are the games in which run them if you have to, but you need to lighten the load for Haynes King. Look, I love seeing Haynes King run the ball as much as anybody. Like he's super effective at it. He's the best running quarterback in the country, in my opinion. But he can't carry the ball 25 times every game. Like he can't do that. Like it's just that you're gonna need him for bigger games down the line. So would I do it maybe sometimes around the goal line? Yeah, I think that's pretty effective, and I think it's just a huge part of their goal line arsenal. But like I think if as you shouldn't need to run him in this game. Like if you're needing to run him to bail you out of situations, then it's not going to be a fun podcast on Saturday evening. Like it's just we're going to have some things to discuss. But I think that this is a game where Jamal and Malachi could get a lot of carries and really go after it. I mean, Oklahoma ran the ball really well last week. I mean, they ran for the ball 228 yards last week on 42 carries, 5.4 yards per carry. And I'm kind of, again, it's teams with Temple's schedule are always a struggle me because it's like, okay, do I put heavy emphasis on the Oklahoma game when it's Oklahoma's a really good team? I don't want to totally take away from what they did against UMass and Howard, although, obviously, like, I think those teams are really bad. But Oklahoma was able to really run the ball well on them last week. And the key stat for me was they only had to do it 7 times with John Mateer. Like John Mateer and Haynes King have similar play styles. I'm not going to call them carbon copies of each other, but like they have similar play styles just in the fact that they can both run the ball. They're effective throwing it as well. But again, they're very effective with their legs. They only needed to run Mateer 7 times. I would be okay with that number or less. Like that's perfectly fine with me. But like I really think that this should be a Jamal Malachi Hosley game.
Yeah, and I haven't really dug deep into the Temple Oklahoma game. But my hope would be that if Jamal Haynes runs the ball 7 times, it's not 7 design runs. Like if you see anything above 5 rushes on the box score, I want to see most of those rushes just be scrambles, just be Haynes King, trying to find something at the end of a play. I don't want to see it flat out, honestly, any design runs from Haynes King besides maybe a couple of option plays. Because you don't have to do that. Again, Jamal Haynes, you could say that he struggled against Clemson. I don't think he got enough carries to really have a full game. I mean, him and Malachi Hosley combined for 15 carries. Hosley's, yards per carry number looks pretty ridiculous right now, but he also hasn't really gotten a ton of opportunity. But with the opportunity that he's had, he's played amazing. So I think if you just give it to your guys, I mean, you have one of the best running back duos in the ACC. I think it's the best running back duo in the ACC. You just got to feed your guys. Jamal Haynes is a beast. Malachi Hosley, we've seen the type of big plays that he can break out. I think against a team like Temple, you gotta let him play a lot. You got to give him a lot of rushes, and I think this is the game to start tuning him up for the ACC schedule because you're gonna see a lot of Haynes and Hosley in that ACC schedule.
So they combined for 15 carries last week. How many do you think they get this week?
I want to see somewhere 30, 35 above.
Yeah, like that's pretty much where I'm at. Like I would put an emphasis on getting those guys going this weekend with Trelane Maddox and Chad Alexander out. Excuse me. You could get some JP Powell, Shane Marshall in there as well. Like I mean, JP Powell scored a touchdown against Gardner Webb. I don't think you'll see him early, but like if this game goes a certain way, like I definitely think you could see those two. But I guess I also want to see the passing attack, and I feel like I beat that drum a lot. But like there were times that it looked fine last week. Like I still think you're going to have to be able to pass the ball a little bit better. if you want to win the ACC. Like, if you end up facing a Miami or a Florida State or somebody down the line, like, I think you're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more. Or not more, I think just more effectively. Like, you did have the big catch from Eric Rivers. I thought Isaiah Canyon was really good, just the way he fought through tacklers. Like, I thought that was really impressive. But then a lot of it was just short stuff, like, Malik Rutherford, 4 for 22 yards. Jamal Haynes, 4 for 36, which wasn't bad. He made it, on one of those touchdown catches, or one of those touchdown drives, excuse me. He had a really big catch near the red zone. He had Zion Taylor had an 18-yard catch. So, like, I think that it's there. And again, Temple's obviously not as good as Clemson. So I do want to see the passing game have a little bit more effectiveness. Another thing I want to see, and we talked about this a little bit, is need to see a little bit better play out of the tight ends. I know I'm sounding a little bit negative right now, and like I'm trying not to, but like I think looking at the PFF grades from like last week, like JT Byrne, 33.1. Which just again, and a 36.3 run blocking grade. Look, I didn't know if any of these guys could replicate what Jackson Halls did. Like, that's a tall ask, but I do think that they're going to have to be better than what they've been. Brett Scyther, 39 snaps last week, 43.3 overall grade, 42.2 run blocking. Josh Beetham, 22 snaps, 43.8 overall grade, 45.9 run blocking. Luke Harpering only played 8 snaps, 51.5 overall grade, 53.1 run blocking. That's just not good enough. Like, I'm not saying they have to be Jackson Halls, but I think for the run game to improve a little bit, and I'm not at all saying it's bad, but I think for it just to get better, I think those guys really have to perform a little bit better in run blocking. Like, they're all 4 going to play. Like, we talk about that. Like, they rotate a lot of tight ends, but I think those guys really have got to step up. And I think they will. Like, this is kind of like, this can be like a get right type game for that kind of thing. And just the overall, I think the offensive line, I think, could stand to play a little bit better. Look, I don't think last week was Malachi Carney's best game. I think Jameson Riggs come in and played okay. Joe Fusile, just okay. Keelan Rutledge was pretty solid. But, again, aside from Haynes King, like, the running game only got 147 yards on 42 carries. I mean, that's only 3.5 yards per clip. Like, I think it can be a lot better. And again, the talent difference will make something there. But for me, I think I want to see heavy dosage of Jamal and Malachi, better blocking overall from the tight ends, from the offensive line, and then just what can the passing game do? Look, I don't like John Mateer had, I think, 282 yards last week, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. What can Haynes King do? Like, can we get? It's Malik Rutherford's best game of the season on deck. Is Eric Rivers, Isaiah Canyon, those guys, like, what can the passing game do? That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I think the big thing I'm looking for is, I guess there's 2, is how good is your running game going to be? I mean, I think this is going to be a very, very, very rush-heavy offense. Take a shot off the top of the defense a couple of times. But I want to see how Haynes and Hosley play. But my biggest thing is, I want to see Haynes King get his first passing touchdown of the year. I mean, we're talking about game 4. And again, that's not at fault of Haynes King. He hasn't played bad. It's just kind of the nature of the offense. You have 2 passing touchdowns. One of them was a very late, touchdown against Gardner-Webb. The other one was an Aaron Philo touchdown. But I want to see more guys get involved in the passing game. I mean, you have 4 catches by tight ends, and we're heading into game 4. Brett Scyther has 1 catch, Harpering has 3. I want to see more guys get involved there. I want to see Eric Rivers is starting to come into his own. They've given him more opportunities. He had the big catch against Clemson. But again, I just want to see more. Still doesn't have a passing, or still doesn't have a receiving touchdown in the year. And he's your guy. He's extremely talented. So I want to see Rivers get the ball. I want to see the tight ends get the ball. And most importantly, win the game. But I want to see Haynes King get his first passing touchdown of the year. That would be huge.
I don't want to take credit for this, but I think if you say Jackson Hall's name enough, he catches his first NFL touchdown. So he did just catch his first. I was just sitting here watching it, and I got the notification that he caught a touchdown for the Bills, his first ever one. So congrats, and you're welcome. So I guess just some like the stats lean heavily in Georgia Tech's favor. Just when you look at the basic stats, like I mean they're for in terms of offense, they're 45th in points per game, but they're 21st overall rushing yards per game, 32nd overall passing yards per game, 19th in total yards per game. So, like, I hate to sound sometimes like a Debbie Downer. Like, I wish they could do this a little bit better. Like, I know it's been good, but I do think like you have to clean some things up, and I think you will. Like, Temple is not as talented as Clemson, but it's again being crisp, being able to do those things. Just I guess just to talk about Temple for just a second, 61st in points allowed per game, 77th in rushing yards allowed per game, 38th in passing yards allowed per game, 51st in total yards allowed per game. Again, I think you just have a small sample size with them, and they're just on two sides of the extreme. They have beaten two incredibly terrible teams, and then they have lost to one team that might be in the college football playoff at the end of the season. So I think, like I said at the beginning, like I do. Temple looks better than I anticipated coming into the season. And I say that like I think that they could be a bowl team. I didn't think about that before the season, and so I do want to give them some credit. I think Keeler's a really good coach. He's a winner. He's approved. Like the guy just wins everywhere he goes, and I think he's going to have them competing in the American probably before long. I really do think that. I think the matchups just lean heavily towards Georgia Tech in this game. Like you can be a really good coach, you can scheme up as much as you want to. I think their offense is fun. Like I like the way it looks. At the end of the day, I think just talent wins out in a lot of times in these matchups. As long as Georgia Tech comes out and takes this game seriously, which I've been at practice. I've been at the press conferences this week. There's no indication to me that they're not. They're saying the right things. I know a lot of people I've seen bring up the Bowling Green game. That's a fair point. Bowling Green. It was about the point spread was about the same. Like I think they were about a 22, 23 point favorite over Bowling Green. Now I do Georgia Tech's. This is a much better Georgia Tech team than the one that got beat by Bowling. Like I think we all understand that. So, but it's just one thing we haven't discussed much is I do think that there's a difference, and Brent Key was asked about it today. Like they are great at being the hunter. Like they go out and beat Clemson, and I know that they weren't like a large underdog in this game like they've been in the past, but just again for the point here. You beat Miami. You've beaten North Carolina a couple times. You have a ranked win over Pitt. You beat Florida State, blah, blah, blah. Those games, like you were gunning for the opponent and trying to prove something. Now, it's not that you're not trying to prove anything here, but like now the target's on your back. Like you're number 18 now. You're going to get everybody's best shot. And that can take teams by, like give if you don't come out at 100%, like, and you play your D plus game, like you're not always going to win. Like you have to play at a high enough level and be able to play with the target on your back is what I'm trying to say. Like you have to be able to do that. And look, we talk about how the schedule is favorable, and it is, but this is also a challenge now. You're going to be a big favorite against Temple Saturday. You're going to be big favorites against Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Boston College. Can you manage that? Can you manage a schedule? We talked about that as one of the keys to the entire season. Like, if you do knock off Clemson, can you manage the schedule? They haven't in the past. Now they're going to get a chance to.
Yeah, and I think just a big picture of this for a little, just for a second. I think you're going to be in that position until November 28th when you're playing in Mercedes-Benz. Every team going down the list on the schedule is going to try to hunt you. They're going to be underdogs if everything goes the way that we think it's going to go. And you have to be able to play what is essentially a full season as a team that isn't the underdog, as a team that isn't, like we talk about the sneaky ACC team that maybe could do a little bit of damage. You got to be one of the teams that's at the top of the conference, and you got to be able to show that, hey, we can get our business done when everybody wants to beat us. We can be the team, that people fear, and they fear us for a reason. We don't slip up or we don't have any mistakes. Um, I think you very much can prove yourself, not only as a program in Georgia Tech, not only as players and Haynes King and everybody else down the list, but also as a coach and Brent Key. He can prove himself as one of those guys if he can go in and he can take care of the schedule. And I think he will. It's just a matter of we've seen you struggle in the past against ACC opponents or other out of conference teams that you really should have beaten. Now here's your chance to go out, have a great year, be 11-0 heading into the Georgia game. And you got to be able to play with that expectation. I think they will. But this is the first week where it starts, and it's going to be like this for a lot of weeks heading after that.
Well, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. Like, we're not going to have this discussion every single week about, oh yeah, look at the schedule the rest of the way. Look, blah, blah, blah. But I do like, this is the first test you've gotten since, and whether you win by a lot, you win by a little, like we can learn something from this. And I guess we'll just, ease in our predictions that way. I think Georgia Tech's going to win. I think that the talent advantage is just significant. Again, could I see a slow start? I think it's very possible. Look, even the best of teams sometimes, look, Ohio State was in a 13-9 claw fight with Ohio in the third quarter last time. Like, I don't anticipate that being the case this week, but like, Temple is better than I expected, and I do think that's a solid team. And I mean that, like, I don't think that they're at the bottom of the barrel like I anticipated. So I think Georgia Tech wins. I don't know of a final score. I guess I'll just go 45-17.
I'm a little bit lower scoring than you. I'm going to go with 35-10. I think they can score a little bit, but it's I mean, you're picking at straws.
Okay, so before we get out of here, player you want to see step up on offense?
Eric Rivers.
Okay, that's a good choice. I was going to put Jamal Haynes, and I don't mean to, I don't want like step up to have like a bad like connotation around it. Like, I just want to see him. Like, I think they could have a big game this weekend. Defense for me, it's Braden Manley.
Defense for me, I'm gonna take a cop out, and I'm gonna say the defensive line. Like, I mean, you gotta get some sacks in this game.
You did what I do sometimes. Like, I'm bad about doing that. Like, I want to make a big point. I don't like singling players out. I want to make a big point about a whole position. But yeah, I don't disagree. Like, I think they can dominate this game up front. That doesn't mean all problems are cured, but like, I think they could really handle things up front, and I want to see them do that. So that'll do it for this episode. We've given you 40 minutes to preview Temple. Really appreciate you guys tuning in, especially if you tuned in all the way through. Again, love the support we've gotten. It's just it blows our minds the amount we've grown over the past 2 years now. Doing this, just would love it if that can continue, so we can keep bringing you good content. Near 1,000 subscribers, would love to get there hopefully by the end of the weekend. Hope to see some of you at the game. I always love meeting you guys at these things. Like, it's awesome. So yeah, we'd just love it if you would like and subscribe to the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Hope you like the channel too. Follow along wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back with an instant reaction sometime Saturday. I know the game's it's a kind of a quirky time, like 4:30. I know I personally don't get to see W, so I'm at least glad I can watch from the press box. I know that's a huge pain in the behind for several people, and I hate that, but I don't control any of that. But just hope to see a lot of you guys out there. It was a great atmosphere last week, and we will see you guys Saturday night.